they told me that they won't be able to make it in the morning, they'll make it in the afternoon, they won't be able to make it today, and so I'm going to be meeting with them a little separately as well. But this project is going to take all our efforts to make it happen. It's ambitious, to say the least, but it's something that I think is exciting and that's very doable. So let me begin by introducing myself a little bit, because I don't think I know most of you. I know Neville, I know Zain. I've known you since you were very, very little, but otherwise I don't think I know everybody. So let me begin by introducing myself. My name is Persis Driver. I am a professor of developmental and educational psychology at the Dominican University in Chicago. I used to teach at UIC before, so University of Illinois, Chicago, before I moved to Dominican about 5 years back. My background is, I'm originally from India, from Bombay, and from one of the Parsi colonies, if anybody has a context for that. I came to the US about 20 years back. My background is in teaching. I did my bachelor's and master's in actually commerce and business and economics in India. But then I came to the US, did my master's in teaching, and then have been teaching ever since. So at some point in my life, I have taught in several different countries. So I've lived in India, I've lived in London, Singapore, Middle East, Dubai, and then Chicago. And so the only common thread between all of this is that wherever I've been surrounded by people. And hence stories and listening to people and understanding their stories is just something that's so very exciting to me. And then, of course, as a psychologist, that's what we do, right? And hence you can see the ideas for the Oral History Project and where they come from. I have, like I said, I've also been an elementary school teacher, I've been a middle school teacher, and then now I've been teaching undergraduates, graduates, and doctoral students in my role as a professor. So that's just a little bit about me. In Chicago, I have also been working with the religion education classes, which I think most of you are part of in your individual cities. And here I have again worked with kids. I'm not very good with very little kids, but I've worked with kids, elementary age kids, all the way up until high school kids, right? And so that's a little bit about my background. Artemis, do you want to start with a little bit of an introduction about yourself, so that those of you, the youth who don't know you, get a sense,
Sure.
And then I'll tell everybody what I'm looking for.
Okay, of course. I'm Artemis Javanshir. I'm originally from Iran. I live in Los Angeles, California, and I'm part of California Zoroastrian Center in LA. I've been teaching religion classes there for about 7-8 years now. And I have my first bachelor's in engineering, second in dental hygiene, and that's what I practice. Nothing to do with education. That's why Persis is here. But lots of motivation, love, and lots of will. So I'm so glad you all joined us, and I'm excited to get to know each one of you. Thank you, Persis.
Absolutely. All right, people. So let's jump in. I'm going to begin first by giving you a little bit of an idea about this project, right? What it is, why are we doing it? What are we thinking? I'm then going to go ahead and ask you to introduce yourself a little bit, just so we get a sense of who is it that we are going to be working with, right? And you may not be working very closely or individually with everybody who's doing this project, but you still want to get a sense of who is it that's going to be responsible for this project from start to finish. And there's a reason why we're doing this with, youth rather than adults, right? So we'll talk about that in a minute. And then if there are any questions, anything that kind of, I can answer for you, I'm here to do that as well. So let me start off with showing you something that's going to be really critical. I'm going to ask you to do one thing first. In the chat box right now, go ahead and add your full name, the city where you're from, and your email address that I can use to communicate with you on a regular basis. Don't use a school email address, because school administrations will often block, correspondence. So give me a personal email address that I can use. So go ahead and put that in the chat box for now, and then I will go from there. Hello. And yes, if you could put your cameras on, that's always a good thing. But we'll talk about all of that in a minute anyway. So I'm going to introduce you to this website, which is called Canvas, right? So Canvas is a website that is used by several universities to manage their classrooms, their class projects, right? So it's like Google Classroom, which is what most of you might be using in your high schools. But Canvas is a site which allows us to sort of communicate with each other, store all the information that we're learning, everything that we're going to be doing about this project is going to be on this website called Canvas. So the first thing that I'm going to ask you to do is, once I get your email addresses, by the end of today, I'm going to go ahead and add you all to this Canvas site, which is going to be labeled Zoroastrian Intergenerational Oral History Project. Nevi, can you confirm for me, did you get the new invitation?
Yeah, I got it. It works.
Perfect. So it works. All right. So you will get an invite from Canvas. It will ask you to just create an account and a password. No information isn't going to ask you for any information. All you're going to have to do is use your Gmail account or whatever account that you're using, and then create a password in order to access this information. All of this information will only be accessed by those of us who have a password, which is why I like it. It's password protected. And everything that we say, do, talk about, together is going to be in this place. So it's a classroom management site that I will use to make sure that we are, keeping ourselves on track. Once you're in, this is what you're going to see. You are going to see the very first page, right? This is our project. It's our Zoroastrian Intergenerational Oral History Project. Very quickly, why did we decide to do this? As I was kind of looking at what different places are doing when it comes to religious education, one thing became very clear, which was that we pay a lot of attention to little kids, elementary kids, even middle school kids. But by the time, we get to high school, life takes over. There's tons of extracurricular activities that are happening. There's just this much time we have. But we want to make sure that we stay connected with what's important, our community organizations. We want to make sure that we create a sense of identity, which as you all get older, and especially as you go to college, you're going to realize is so critical to everything that you're going to be doing and thinking about. And so I wanted a project that we could all work together, individuals who are especially high schoolers, maybe late middle schoolers as well, where we could work together to create something that we would be meaningful, not just for the community and society, but for us as well. That's where this oral history project came from. Do any of you have any experience? Like, have you all ever heard what an oral history recording is like? Have you all have any of you had any experience with them? Okay, good. That's a good thing, right? Because then we get to start with a blank slate. The idea behind an oral history, obviously, is to preserve a small nugget of history that may not have got a lot of focus and attention otherwise, right? So we are going to be looking for stories. We are going to be looking for conversations that are integral for us to understand who we are as Zoroastrians, right? What is our history? But that may not have got a lot of focus in the past. Right? And that's where this intergenerational history project comes from. So before I go ahead, I'm going to now take a pause, stop talking, and kind of hand it over to you all and ask you, why are you here? right? I mean, it's 8 o'clock in the morning for some of you, but you're here. So my big question to you is, what's driving you to this project? Like, what is it that's making you feel curious about this project? Why do you think this is something that you would want to put time and effort into? Because it will require time and effort. It's going to be almost a year-long project that we're going to work on, but I have a high schooler myself, so I'm very respectful of your time. So you can trust me that I will not abuse that. But go ahead and, share some ideas with me. Why? What drew you to this project? May I put you in the spotlight only because you're first on my screen? Is that okay? Thank you.
Sure. I'd say to connect with others and also to learn more about our religion, as well as the intergenerational aspects, so to speak to others.
Mhm, mhm. And you're someone who has been thinking about these topics too, right? I mean, like Artemis was saying, you've written essays and, so is that something that fits with the way you think about these things as well?
Yeah.
All right, good to know that. Jasper, what about you?
I'm interested in this because I want to have a deeper connection with our religion and see someone else's experiences and see a different lens on our religion.
Someone understand our religion from a different perspective than your own, right? Which is the key, and something that we don't often get an opportunity to do, especially given how busy our lives are. All right, Nevi, what's going on?
I'm interested because like everyone like has like different stories of like how they like came to America and like how they grew up in India and just like overall immigration. It's just like exciting to like learn people's like different perspectives on like what happened in their other lives.
Yeah, I love it, right? I mean, I was born and brought up in Bombay, and it wasn't until I came to the US that I realized I really don't know anything about the lives of Zoroastrians in Iran. I don't know their stories. I don't know what's going on. And it's just been a very jarring experience to understand that I don't have any of that knowledge. And so, yes, those stories, again, really important. Zain, what are you thinking?
So I'm mostly just interested in learning how people lived more like the older generation. I feel like that's really cool to me, just to see different perspectives on life.
Right. And that generational aspect is exciting, right? I mean, you don't often get to, of course, you have grandparents who you might sit and talk to, but still having those meaningful conversations don't often happen organically. And as I've grown older and I have realized that I don't have my grandparents around me anymore, I've lost the opportunity to sit down and have hours and hours of conversations about their experiences, right? And so, yeah, that's great. Vista, I'm sorry, I can't see you, but can you talk?
Yes. So I came because I wanted to learn other people's perspective on this project, or other people's perspective on Zoroastrianism, and I wanted to expand my knowledge with that too.
Absolutely, I love it, right? Expanding knowledge. We're kind of seeing themes emerging in as you all are talking, right? Okay, Kian. I'm sorry. Kian, are you?
Yeah. I would like to do it more because I want to learn about my grandparents' history of how they had to come to a different culture and everything like that.
Mm-hmm. So really, you're kind of invested in that understanding of your own family history as well, right? Which is critical here. Okay, Manucher?
I kind of agree with Vista and Jasper about kind of learning about people's perspectives on Zoroastrianism in the past and like how they lived.
Okay, so it looks like this is two big themes keep jumping out, right? But I don't want to leave anyone behind. So Jade, are you a student?
Yeah, I'm a student.
Okay, go for it.
I thought it would be a good opportunity to learn about all of the different aspects for different people and like different families and like different experiences.
Yeah, You seem like a curious bunch. Okay, Zarina. Okay, and Paruchista.
Hi. So from a young age, I'm Iranian Zoroastrian. I just loved listening to my grandparents talking about Iran and like the old times. And my grandfather, he grew up in Mumbai. He was Parsi as well as my grandmother, like one of my grandmothers. So I just love to learn about their culture because my grandfather wasn't able to tell me about it.
Fantastic. I mean, look at that, right? I mean, we already have such rich histories just amongst us, just right here, right in this group. And yet it's a travesty that there's no real place where all of this is accessible to us, to others, 3,000 years of history, right? So you all, hopefully, I can see that you all are all here for the right reasons. You want to expand your worldview. You want to get a better understanding of your own families, of culture, of different people living within your groups. All of that is fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So now here's what you're going to see. When you go into this website, notice that on the left-hand side, there's going to be something that says modules. When you click on the modules, it's going to take you into a lot of different information and pages that are going to be useful for you. So right up here is going to be some information about this project. I won't take time today to kind of go over everything because it's going to be all right here. And I think you all have a very great perspective on why you're doing this anyway. So I think, you can look at it. There's a little bit of a write-up on the purpose and the rationale behind our project. The one thing that I will tell you is that we are not the first people to do this, right? And I'm going to show you a few examples. There is a website called SADA, South Asian American Digital Archive, which has digitally archived certain oral histories of people, individuals who could be important for people to know about. There is Rice University Digital Scholarship Archive, where we have certain oral histories of certain individuals within our community. There are other websites, right, that have done this kind of work. So we are certainly not the first people to do this. However, what makes our project really unique is that it is going to be youth-led, right? I really want to be I don't want to be the one who's constantly giving you directions and telling you constantly of everything that you need to do. I want you to be the individuals who are going to be leading this project in a direction that you think is most meaningful to you and to the community, which means I am not stuck on the idea that an oral history project means you're going to sit on a table across from somebody with a mic and interview them for 1 hour. Right? Or we can do that. I'm a qualitative researcher. I can show you how to do that, but that's not going to be fun for you. And that's definitely, that could be something that then just kind of stays somewhere and people are not really even looking at it, right? So we can be creative with this project. We can make it our own. But it's important that it be as much as possible facilitated and led by the youth, right? So in this project, even your teachers in different religion organizations are more touch points who will be kind of making sure that you have what you need to lead this project. And they're going to be there as resources. They're going to have all the information that you need. They're going to assist you in any way possible. But the hope is that you will be the ones who will be leading, facilitating, doing the project, right? So you have autonomy in doing this. And I am very, very happy if you're going to come to me with ideas, thoughts about how we can make this something that is meaningful rather than just let's just sit and do an interview, right? So we'll talk about all of that. Project workflow, just so that you know what you're getting into just before you kind of decide. Here's how our project is going to go. Right? We had in the month of March, obviously your teachers worked hard in sort of helping identify, spreading the word, helping you understand a little bit what the project might be all about. And we that's the reason why you're here, right? So we spend the month of March creating these teams, this team of youth who want to be part of this project. In the month of April, I'm using this time to just get you all acquainted with the project as we are doing right now. May and June is when we will be doing trainings. So once you've got a good sense of this project, once you're like, yes, I definitely am in, I'm doing this, I'm in for the long haul, I'm going to start calling you all to do 4 days of training. All right. It's going to be split up in a way that there'll be 2 days in May and 2 days in June. I'm very willing to work with your schedules, so don't worry about it. But my hope is to get professionals to do certain kinds of trainings with you, right? And what do I mean by that? Like I mentioned, I'm a qualitative researcher. So most of my publications, my books, all of those are done based on qualitative research. So interviews, ethnographic studies, those kinds of things. So I am in a position to help you, train you in how to design an interview, in how to design the kinds of questions that you want to ask for an oral interview, and how to actually lead those interviews and kind of make sure that when you are recording that interview, that's it, right? You don't want to go back and kind of tell the person you interviewed, hey, can we do this again because I messed up. So before you get to that point, you are going to need a little bit of training as a professional, right, to be able to do this. And I can do that. But then there are several other wonderful individuals who are professionals in the field who can talk to you about how do you interview somebody so that you're creating a story, right? What kinds of technology are we going to use in order to do this? Because especially if you're going to digitally archive these, they need to be clear, they need to be, audible, they need to be, we need to make sure that you're using the right technology. And research. This project is not just, I'm just gonna sit again with my grandparents and then just ask them questions, right? You're gonna have to do a little bit of research before you sit down with them and have those conversations. So all of these things, you will be trained on these skills by professionals. Why are we doing this? Again, it's necessary for the project. But number two, it looks phenomenal on your resumes as well, right? Many of you will be applying to colleges. Many of you will be thinking about career development, all of those things. These are skills that you will put on your resume. These are skills that you will talk about when you say, I'm trained in, doing this kind of work. Right? Archiving humanity stories is a big, big deal, especially as you think about what's happening globally in our world with the amount of changes that are happening, the amount of, wars and different things in different societies constantly kind of turning over. Being able to preserve these stories for history is a skill that's going to be very, very valuable. And you may not use it in your career, but it's still skills that are fantastic for people to look at, right? So from your personal perspective, that's yet another reason to think about this project as a professional project, right? May, June, that's your training. Once that's done, we're going to spend June just identifying who it is that you want to interview. And kind of conducting a pre-meeting with them so that you get to know them a little, you get to know their story a little bit, so that by the time you sit down to talk with them, you have a good sense of what are those important things that I need to tease out in my interview, right? Otherwise, very often what happens is you do an interview for an hour and then you leave and then you say, oh my gosh, but that person never talked about this thing. And this was the most important thing, right? So that's the reason why we do a little bit of legwork before. And then the rest of summer, depending on your schedule, we are flexible, summer, fall, however you want it to go, take however long it takes to actually conduct the interviews, right? Once the interviews are done, the final step is to actually try to make some sense from them, so that you might decide to edit them. You might decide to make sure that if you're going to put it out to the public, you want it to you be in the best foot forward. There are ways that we can edit out all those ums and all the things that happen when you're sitting and recording something. So again, all of this is voluntary. You can do as much or as little or as much as you want on this project. If you want to kind of really sort of run with it, great. If you want to take a little step back and say, I'm just going to work with somebody on it for the first time, totally fine as well. We will work together to make that happen, whatever is most convenient to you. But this is the general timeline that I'm thinking. And then a lot of spring of next year will be about dissemination, right? Where can we go and talk about these things? Can we go to a FISANA AGM meeting and talk about it? Can we publish these things in a FISANA journal? Can we, publish this into a bigger audience? Where can we go and talk and disseminate this information? So that's the project timeline. I'm going to take a pause. What questions are popping up in your head right now? No questions?
Will the interviews be online, like over Zoom, or in person?
Excellent question. No matter how you do it, they have to be recorded. So if you have access to the person who is, right there, and you can interview them in person, my advice is always do it in person, because that one-on-one connection is really, really important. But while you're doing it in person, we will make sure that it is getting recorded and that we will get a transcript of the interview as well. But for some reason, if that person is not, you're not next to that person, and obviously they're in a different city or something like that, then we will do it on Zoom. Zoom is really helpful because it gives you a transcript. I don't know if you all have ever used Zoom for interview purposes, but it will give you a transcript. It's not very good. You still have to go back and kind of make a few edits and make sure it's good. But it saves you a lot of time and effort in having to transcribe it. Because when we archive that interview, it not only will your audio be archived, it must have a written transcript along with it as well. And so it's great to record it on Zoom, but that doesn't mean you have to do it online. And in fact, I would encourage you to do it in person if possible, because as we talk about in a training, you might want the person not just to answer your questions, but like to show you photographs from their life, right? And then use those photographs and those artifacts to tell you a story. So in person, better, but online is perfectly fine as
well. Persis?
Yes.
This is Ava. I have a question in terms of recording. Will the participant for this project also need to be visually recorded?
I think that depends on the comfort of the participant. So typically, many participants are more comfortable with an audio recording. However, like I said, if you're doing an artifact interview, then I think a visual recording is better, because they might want to show that artifact to the public as well. So we'll let the person who's being interviewed decide based on their comfort level, whether they want it only audio or they're okay with visuals as well. Because in the past, I've done some interviews which are not static, sit in one place interviews either. Like, the person walks with the person through the house looking at different things and different artifacts. And in that case, a visual narrative is more powerful than an auditory one.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else for now? Okay, all right. So just to kind of give you a little bit more, understanding of timelines and things like that. Again, once you get into Canvas, all of this will be you'll be able to see all of this. But from a training perspective, here are the dates that I have chosen thus far. May 13th and May 14th. So you're going to have to give me a weekend of your life, not a whole day, of course. I'm looking at about 1.5 hour training session, right? It could be a little more, it could be a little less. So you're going to have to give me that time, May 13th and May 14th, and then you June 3rd and June 4th. But I think we'll probably move that 1 week later. So I will finalize these dates by the end of this week, but this is generally where the dates will be, around mid-May and then around mid-June. So those are your 4 days of training that you will get for this project. Along with that, there is one little thing that I'm going to request you to do before I meet you for the next time, which will be on May 13th. We'll keep that date straight. There's a little preliminary activity that I'm going to ask you to complete. It's just a small prompt that I'm going to ask you to write a response to. Other than that, I will kind of wrap up today with just a better idea of what is an oral interview. And finally, what is the theme of the oral interviews that we are going to be conducting this year, right? So if you go into Canvas, you'll notice I have something here that says, what is oral interview history? And many of you have this idea already, but I want you to be very clear. Oral histories are recordings of memories, right? They're recordings of personal commentaries on events that have actually happened in a person's life, right? So very often you can talk to somebody and they can say, oh, you know, my parents, my mom told me the story about this, something that happened to them, right? Which is great, which is, you know, also oral. But when that happens, we're talking more about oral traditions. Oral histories are often more grounded in personal experiences. What was your participant's personal experience through something, right? That's what makes oral histories really, really important. And why this focus on personal experience? Because, I mean, look at this, right? These are actually examples that I have over here. So take a look at it when you get a minute. But these are actual examples of oral history projects, right? So if I had to simply record something in history, I would record it in a very simple, straightforward kind of a way over here on the left. On the other hand, when you listen to people talk about the same event, you get that immersive experience, what we qualitative researchers call the lived experience of people, right? So, and you don't get an understanding of the lived experiences of people until you do what we are trying to do. And so when you look at the difference between these two sides of the table, you yourself should be able to kind of figure out why doing an oral history project is so much better than just sitting in front of a computer and trying to look up, you know, the revolution that happened and what happened to Zoroastrians during the revolution in Iran, right? You can get that information, but you can't understand what actually happened until you talk to somebody who's maybe been through that experience, right? And so that's why oral histories are just so incredibly powerful. The last thing, though, is when we sit down to do an oral history project, these projects can often get out of hand. Because if I were to go around the room right now and ask you, what is it that you are actually interested in knowing, right? It's a very vague topic, isn't it? What do you want to know about their lives? All of you told me you wanted to know more about, you know, lives of adults, of other individuals. But what do you want to know? And that means that these projects often have a tendency to become very chaotic and disorganized. And in order to not let that happen, what we're going to do this year, and this is the only thing that I am going to say, this is what we're doing. After this, like everything else is in your hands, right? But what I'm going to say is that we are going to have a theme for this year. This oral history project is something that will happen year after year after year, right? New kids will do this. It'll kind of, some of you will do it multiple times. Some of you might do it only this year, however it goes. But this year, the theme of our oral history projects is going to be what we call diasporic memories, right? Which, so my final kind of question to you all is, do you have an understanding of what is a diaspora? Do you know what that word means, you know, especially in the context of Zoroastrians? Go for it. You're going to have to talk through this project, people. Lots of talking and interacting in this project. So what are you thinking? Any ideas?
I think like a diaspora is people spread out from where they originally were.
Right? A diaspora is typically a movement of a group of people, right? From their roots, from their place of origin to different places. But that diaspora consists of many different elements, right? And many different reasons. Why did we move? Why did your parents move if they did? Why did they move? Why did your grandparents move from wherever they were, right? There are different reasons for it. Some that are more compelling, than others. Some that are purely economic. Some that are much more grounded in, self-preservation and survival, right? But these are all different stories of movements. And when we study diasporas, there are so many different things that go into it. Migration stories, like we're saying, why do people move, right? How do people move? What is the collective memory of a group of people who have moved? Think about as Zoroastrians, right? I mean, how many times have we moved? We're now all over the world. But if you think about originally, the movement of it, you realize there's a collective memory that we have as a group of people. How do we create connections? If we are so spread out all across the world, how do we maintain those connections amongst ourselves with our country of origin? What does those connections look like, right? All of those things are important. A group consciousness, how do we sustain a sense of identity, even though we are so torn and in so many different places? And how do we maintain strong ties, not only with those people who we are living in, like in LA or Chicago or in New York, but also with individuals all across the world who we can then kind of connect with and say, yeah, we have something shared in our histories, right? And so diasporic memories are memories of anything that have to do with movement. And that's going to be the theme of our oral histories for this year. So as you all start thinking, right, as your wheels start turning and you're thinking, who am I going to interview? What might I want to ask them? What would be interesting for me to know? Keep in mind that you want to talk to people, at least for this round, you want to talk to them about their stories of movement. Right? How have they assimilated in new cultures? Why did they have to leave their countries of origin? How did they kept connected with their countries of origin, with the new individuals around them? All these questions can be part of it, but it's going to be within the theme of diasporic memories. Yeah. So that's the information that I wanted to give you all. Again, I'll give you a minute. Any new questions cropping up? Does this seem interesting to you, exciting to you? Yes, Parachista, go for it.
So I was wondering, how would you transcribe or interview someone who doesn't speak English?
Absolutely, that's a fantastic question. We've had it several times. So there are multiple ways of doing it. That's a question that I've put to a lot of professionals in the field who work in the field of oral history, right? And I've got multiple responses. Number one, you don't. You leave it in the language of the participant that they feel most comfortable talking in, right? Number two, there are several translation services that we can use. And we can have individuals within our community itself. And I know several, I work with several of them as well, who will translate these interviews for us. Typically, you might have individuals talking in Farsi, right? So we might have individuals who will translate that for us. And then because depending on the technology that we are using, we can always kind of use different things like Google Translate, to embed our translation within the videos themselves as well. So there are many different ways in which we will handle it. But again, like my previous response, how we handle it, I think will have to be sensitive enough that it has to be agreed upon by the interviewee and what they're most comfortable doing. Does that answer your
Thank
question?
you. Yes.
Excellent. Anyone else? Okay. Okay. All right. So very quickly, to wrap up today's session, I'm going to ask you all one last thing, a very, very important question that you're going to end with, right? Really the most important question. I'm going to do a round robin one more time. You're just going to go quickly tell me what grade you're in so that I get a good sense of, where you're at in your academic trajectory. And the most important question, what did you eat for breakfast today? Yes, start.
I'm in grade 10 and nothing yet. I'm going to now because it's 8 o'clock.
8 a.m., nothing yet. Jasper.
I'm a junior, and so grade 11, and I had a bagel with cream cheese.
Okay. Neville?
I'm a junior and I had pancakes and a banana smoothie.
All right, Zane.
I am a sophomore and I have not eaten breakfast yet.
Vista.
I am a freshman and I haven't ate breakfast yet.
Kian.
I'm a 7th grader and I ate a breakfast sandwich.
Jade.
I'm a freshman and I had fruit.
Okay. Zarina. Parachista.
I'm in the 8th grade and I've had strawberries and Nutella.
All right, people, thank you for that. If that seems like a very frivolous question, I can assure you as a psychologist, you just gave me more information by telling me what you ate than you ever imagined. So with that, if you have questions, hang back. I'm here to answer them for you. Otherwise, I'm going to see you next on May 13th, right? I will send you the timings soon. It will be a 1.5 to 2 hour sort of training session. That's when you will really kind of come prepared to throw yourself into the project, right? We're going to get together. We're going to work on hands-on activities. It's not going to be like today where I'm doing a lot of the talking. It's really going to be you sort of starting to lead that project. But you have about a month between now and then to start thinking about this project, right? Who do you think would be valuable to talk to? What kinds of questions might be valuable to know? What kinds of stories would you like to tell? And what kinds of stories, most importantly, would you like to hear? So you have a month to sort of keep turning this in your head over and over again. My address is on the main page of Canvas. So if you want to connect with me, if there's a burning, exciting question or idea in your head at 12 o'clock at night, email me, right? And say, hey, I was thinking about this. What do you think? And I love to chat with you through that as well. But we have a month to just think about this project. Talk to your teachers, talk to your family members, talk to your community members. Tell them you're doing this. Tell them, this is going to be something that's going to be interesting, exciting, important. What do they think? What advice do they have, right? You have a month to sort of just think about it. And then I will see you on May 13th. And the first training you will have will be on this idea of storytelling. What does it take to tell a good story? How do you tell a good story? And that's meaningful. Yeah.
Versus you missed Manucher and Zarina. I want to know what Manucher and Zarina had for breakfast.
I don't think.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm a sophomore and I didn't eat anything yet.
Okay, too early. Zarina, what about you?
Yeah, I haven't heard from Zarina all the time, so I'm thinking there's some technology issue there. But yes,
Okay, got it.
one last thing I'm going to mention is there are certain expectations, right? So please make sure that you're not ghosting us. It's difficult to work across boundaries of states and cities. So my expectation is that if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And I've worked with enough high schoolers and undergrads in my life to know that I will take working with you all any day over working with adults. So if there's any issue, any concern, any questions, please communicate with me and feel free to share, throw emails at me any time of the day. All right. But thank you for being here. I really appreciate you taking the initiative here. And I'm looking forward to a great collaboration over a long period of time. Yes? Thank you. All right, everyone. See you all in about a month.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.